My name is Draven Gilbert, and my topic is the science of baseball. I'm going to explain mostly the science of pitching and batting. I'm not going to do everything about baseball because there's just too much in baseball to do it in a 12-minute presentation. So I'm going to explain pitching, some pitches, and then I have a video on how batting works in baseball, and then I'll explain a little bit more on that. So the science in pitching. In baseball, the pitcher and the batter are probably the two most important and common things that you'll see, because without them the game can't be played. The pitcher is the one that throws the ball to the batter, and the batter is trying to hit the ball that the pitcher throws. So the pitcher is trying his best to not have the batter get a hit, because if the batter gets a hit, then he can get on base. And you want to get on base as a batter because that's how you score. If you run around all the bases, which there's 4, then you get a run, or you get a point. So if the pitcher can prevent the batter from even getting on base to begin with, then there's no way that can score. So that is his objective in baseball. So, with that in mind, there's many different pitches that pitchers have came up with over the years, so it's harder for the batters to be able to hit the ball. And when I say different pitches, what that means is that the pitcher can hold the ball in a different way and also let go of it in a different way. So, like, for example, actually I'll leave the examples for when I actually talk about the pitches. But for now, all you know is that there's different pitches in baseball, because if there's only one pitch, it'd be pretty easy over time to hit the ball if you saw the same thing happen every single time it was thrown to you. So over the years, pitchers came up with new ways to throw the ball, and it would affect how the ball goes through the air. And the two things that that affect the baseball and its movement is gravity and drag. Gravity, we all know what gravity is. But drag is the outside force that opposes an object in motion. So with Newton's first law, how an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon on an outside force, drag is one of those outside forces when it comes to a baseball. So pitchers have learned to throw the ball in different ways to have drag help the ball almost move. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. Now the first pitch I'm going to talk about is the fastball. Surprisingly enough, the name gives away the whole point of the fastball, which is for it to be a fast pitch. The pitcher will he'll put all of his force on the back part of the ball when he lets go of it, so it creates backspin, and the backspin basically fights against the drag. So since it's fighting against the drag, the thing that'll slow down the ball, it's able to keep its speed for majority of its flight until it gets to the plate. So the fastball is thrown to hopefully get the batters to not be able to time it up right and either swing too early or too late because of how fast it was able to travel, even though drag was affecting it. Another pitch that pitchers will throw that is dead giveaway with the name is the curveball. The curveball, I have a diagram here to show you, but you hold your fingers on the outside of the ball. So just from that alone, if you were to throw a ball like that, just the force from it being on one side of the ball and not on the other would make it spin just then. But then you also rotate your hand right before you let go of the ball. Now what this does is, like the name says, it makes the ball curve. So since drag, the effect and the rotation that is on the ball, the drag helps it propel it at almost like a curve. So it'll look like it's coming straight, and then at the last second it's going to curve. And a lot of pitchers like to use this because it messes with the batter, so they'll think that it's coming right towards them, and then because of the rotation they put on the ball and how they let go of it, drag is going to help it curve at the last second, and it's going to normally be a strike, and most people don't swing at them because they think it's going to come right towards them, so they normally get away. The knuckleball. The knuckleball is almost thought of as a cheating pitch because it, unlike the curveball and the fastball where it tries to fight against, well, the curveball doesn't really fight against drag, it uses it a little bit to its advantage, but the knuckleball is huge and using drag to its advantage. The whole point of a knuckleball is to throw the ball really slow and to have it to where it's almost no spin at all. So, as we were talking earlier with the fastball and the knuckleball and how you put spin on it and then drag will affect it based on that, since the knuckleball has no spin on it and there's nothing that's trying to lead it on anywhere, so gravity and drag it almost basically makes it look like it's wobbling in the air. It'll cut left, it'll cut right because of the seams on the ball, but air and drag will catch onto that and it'll make it go to the left, make it go to the right. So because there's no spin on it, it almost looks like it's wobbling in the air, almost like how if you throw a football wrong, some people may have heard this before, but it looks like a duck flying because you didn't put enough spin on it and it's like wobbling throughout the air. That's almost what the knuckleball does, but only it looks as if it's moving because there is zero spin on it. And that is the point of the knuckleball. Alright, I now have a little video for you on the science of batting.
Yogi Berra said you can't think and hit at the same time. And if we're talking about hitting a major league fastball, he was absolutely right. There just doesn't seem to be enough time for a hitter's brain to process a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and react quickly enough to hit it. The distance from the rubber to home plate is 60 feet 6 inches. Subtracting 5 or 6 feet to account for the pitcher's stride, it takes a fastball traveling at 90 to 95 miles an hour about 400 milliseconds to get from the pitcher's hand to the catcher's mitt. The batter is already at a disadvantage because it takes the human brain around 80 to 100 milliseconds just to process the image that the eyes are taking in. On top of that, it's going to take 150 milliseconds on average to get his bat around to meet the ball, and 25 milliseconds for his brain to send the signal to his body to swing. That leaves him with just 125 milliseconds to gauge the pitch and decide whether or not to go for it. To put this in perspective, it takes 300 to 400 milliseconds just to blink. If the pitch looks good, the batter has a 7 millisecond window to meet the ball in a position where he will put it in play. If he's too early or too late, the best he can hope for is a foul ball. So how is this humanly possible? Well, for one, it helps to have good eyesight. The average MLB player has 20/12 vision, and it's a quality scouts look at when assessing players. It also helps to get a head start. Hitters will begin their forward motion before the pitch is delivered. They have about 50 milliseconds to decide to check their swing. After that, the bat will be moving too fast to be stopped. But the ultimate trait that helps major leaguers hit the fastball is the ability to see into the future. Well, sort of. Our brains are really good at anticipating information that we haven't yet received to make up for our lag in vision. Researchers at UC Berkeley tested this by showing volunteers flash drag illusions like this one. If you pause the video, you see the red and blue dots actually appear in the same position. But while watching it in motion, they look slanted in the direction that the background is rotating. This is because our brains are predicting the motion of the dots based on the information we're receiving from the movement of the background. The same applies in baseball. Hitters begin predicting the trajectory of the ball based on the movement of the pitcher's arm before it even leaves his hand. This makes up for the fact that he won't actually see the pitch until it's a quarter of the way towards him. So you have to admit, hitting a major league fastball seems nothing short of superhuman.
Alright, so I just want to explain a little bit about that in case you guys didn't catch that, but it takes about 400 milliseconds for the average 95-mile-an-hour fastball to be thrown from the pitching mound across the plate. That is around the same amount of time that it takes you to blink. So by the time that a pitch and the major leagues has been thrown and goes across the plate to where the batter has to hit it, you would barely be able to blink in time. So, if you blinked while you were batting, you would miss the ball entirely. You would not be able to see it at all. Just think about that for a second. You have to be able to go in motion and swing, and not only be able to swing fast enough, see the fact that the ball is able to be hit, but you also have to line up your bat with a 95-mile-an-hour ball coming at you in the amount of time that it takes you to blink. So that's pretty crazy. And as they said at the end of the video that I just showed you, it's almost superhuman. And it's pretty crazy how so many people play in the major leagues and yet are still able to get a hit. But that's mainly why, if none of you follow baseball, a good batting average, what they do in baseball is they take how many times you hit the ball over how many times you've batted, and they divide that to give you a batting average. And if you get a 0.25 to a 0.3, so that's a 25 to a 30% batting average, that's good. That's basically saying that it's good to hit if you only hit 3 out of every 10 times that you go up to bat. And the reason that's good is, as you can see, it's very, very hard to hit a ball in the major leagues. Now that's a fastball. As I showed you earlier, there were different pitches that throw off the batters, so when the batters are getting ready to swing really fast, the pitcher might throw a curveball or a knuckleball, and it'll be slower than what a fastball normally is, and that's why pitchers came up with that, because it will throw batters off. When normally they'll think it's a fastball, they might throw a knuckleball, and it's almost 40 miles an hour slower on average. But that's pretty much it for my presentation. Hope you enjoyed, and there are my resources. So, thank you.